Let's talk about Elon Musk, not that SpaceX successful flight, but other areas where he is taking a big interest, and certainly has taken an interest in the grooming gang scandal in this country. It was him who got, retweeted some comments and some information about that at the end of last year, which basically exploded that story back onto our news screens. Story, by the way, which we've been talking about since word go here on this station and I on previous stations as well. And indeed, a story that was really broken in the British media by a Times journalist. But Elon Musk has now said he's willing to fund legal action against corrupt officials who he claims covered up the crimes of grooming gangs. I don't think you have to say he claims. I think we know for sure that has happened. But he said he would donate to help cases against those who aided and abetted the rape of Britain. On an X post, he said, I would like to help fund legal actions against corrupt officials who aided and abetted the rape of Britain per the official government inquiry. Now, we've had got the official government inquiry. We've had a sort of government inquiry that never really looked into the grooming gangs issue. We had Baroness Louise Casey, who has looked into the issue, and she has urged that there should be a full independent public inquiry. We're still waiting to get that off the ground. But we've also got an unofficial inquiry into grooming gangs led by the former Reform UK MP Rupert Lowe. They say that they have found child sexual exploitation not just in a few dozen towns, not just in the 45-50 that some investigators have suggested, but in 85 local authorities across Britain. Well, let's talk about this with Dr. Rakib Ehsan. He's a social policy analyst and joins us now. Very good afternoon to you, Rakib.
Good afternoon, Julia. How are you?
Very well indeed. Thanks for joining us. Look, I for one very much welcome this. This sort of echoes also what we have seen with Maggie Oliver, who's the whistleblower in Greater Manchester Police on what happened in her patch, where she's now got an investigation. They've crowdfunded. I've helped retweet that and hope to try and publicise it to get funds to bring legal actions against the police, the social workers, the council officials, all the other people who not only failed to act to prevent these grooming gangs, but also actually actively work to cover it up.
No, I couldn't agree more. And the reality is the grooming gangs scandal is very much a nationwide one, and various organs of the British state are involved, as you say there, Julia. Police forces, local councils, social services, safeguarding partnerships, and I think even the education system. I think the idea that school teachers and indeed head teachers, they had no idea that this was going on when it came to some of their pupils within their institutions. I just don't buy that at all. So I think here what we're talking about public officials. It's a fundamental dereliction of their duty, especially when it comes to protecting the well-being of some of the most vulnerable members of our society. So I think, and I think, to be honest, whether people think about Elon Musk, I don't even think that we'll be having a natural statutory inquiry into the grooming gangs unless that he flagged this scourge to begin with next. And just sort of
there was no new information. I would say even Baroness Casey's report, which at least sort of gave some cover to Keir Starmer for going backtracking on his pledge not to have a public national inquiry. But actually, there's no new information. Anyone who's paying attention to this has known all this stuff for many years. And I don't know how many more these young women need to come forward and tell their stories and tell how, it's people say, well, we had no idea. Yeah, you did. They told the people running the care home. They were seen at the school gates getting into the cars with men who were twice their age, giving them cigarettes. They were spotted on the streets. We had a father who called the police, saying, please get my daughter out. She's been gang raped in there. He was arrested by the police. We've had girls turning up pregnant with, literally a fetus removed of the baby, of her abuser and her 12, 13-year-olds and him not being prosecuted. This has been clear and obvious for anyone to see. These girls were written off as basically as slags. That's what they were written off as. They were expendable for worrying about community cohesion. I mean, we do need to have prosecutions, don't we? We need to make it clear that if you do allow this to happen, even if you're not perpetrating it yourself, you will face punishment.
No, absolutely. And I think that's something that I've called for some time as well. That at the very least, if people are still in those public sector positions, they need to be removed from those positions. I think we also need to be talking about loss of pension entitlement. And I think in the most serious cases, we have to be talking about criminal prosecutions as well. against those public sector officials. But I think we're talking about something more sinister than just the cover-ups. I think that we also have to investigate the degree to which public sector officials enabled these heinous crimes, if not directly participated in those crimes
Although
themselves.
in some cases directly participated. Allegations of police officers being involved, and a counsellor who basically instructed everyone not to get involved, who was believed to be involved. I mean, this is it. We're looking at people being charged with. I mean, what would the criminal charges be in some of these cases? Would it be sort of corruption in public office, or what would it be?
No, I think that it would be certainly looking into that kind of. It's ultimately it's abuse of power. I think that should definitely come into it. And I think we have to be very clear here that if you're a public sector official, that comes with some very special responsibilities, especially when it comes to protecting the most vulnerable members of society, of our society as well. I think a true mark of an advanced civilized society is how the most vulnerable are protected, especially by its public institutions. And unfortunately on that front, the grooming gang scandal shows that we're failing miserably on that front.
Yeah, indeed. And again, the key thing of this is it's not a historic crime. This is still happening today. It's very, very clear. People like Maggie Oliver, who've been working on this issue for decades now, and as a whistleblower in Greater Manchester Police, she's very clear that it's still happening today. And one of the interesting things, this Rupert Lowe, and look, he hasn't got this isn't a grooming gang inquiry in any meaningful sense. He's mounting an investigation. I mean, all for more people do this, the better. All credit to him. But it's not an inquiry in the full sense. You need to have statutory powers. You
can't compel witnesses to stand, for example,
and also for them to be punished if they're proven to lie. These are crucial things. But all credit. But he's talking about this is going on has been going on or is going on in 85 different local authorities across Britain. Now, there's no reason to think it is not going on everywhere. But the key thing is, I've always been amazed by how no one's talked about it happening in London. Sadiq Khan's like, no, nothing's happening in London. Why wouldn't it be happening in our capital city when it appears to be happening in every town and city around the country?
No, and I think what's quite remarkable, there's one city that definitely springs to mind which has been thoroughly under-investigated when it comes to grooming gangs, Bradford. I find it absolutely remarkable that you have so many grooming gang scandals in that part of West Yorkshire, yet that Bradford, for example, has been thoroughly under-investigated. Well, I think certainly that London needs to be part of that as well. I believe one of the local authorities that's been identified through Rupert Lowe's private investigation is Brent. So I think that we definitely need to look at the capital as well. And I find it amazing that the Mayor of London, he doesn't want to touch this with a barge pole, to the point that he's always ridiculed people for suggesting that grooming gang activity is taking place in the capital. So I think it's very important that this is a thoroughly nationwide investigation naturally has to include the capital. That just makes common sense.
Absolutely. Dr. Rakib Ehsan, social policy analyst, thank you very much indeed. Well, Claire Pearce, just a final word on this. I mean, because it's all about worrying about community cohesion. I think you'd have a lot more community cohesion if people didn't fear that girls were being gang raped and getting away with it.
How about we look at the rights of those girls to have their cases looked at properly? People need to be prosecuted, and I think Rakib is absolutely spot on that people need to lose pensions and even be in prison to make this.
I definitely want people in prison. I want people named and shamed for failure to use something.
Absolutely.
And if they say, no, I was a victim, I was being threatened, well, name the person who threatened you then, and we'll go for them. But heads are going to have to roll. And again, all these areas we always need. Whether it's pension scandal, whether it's like whether it's infected blood, whether it's post office scandal, whatever it is, you need to have people at the top, and they need to know that they will face justice in the end, because that's how you stop these things happening.
Without
indeed.